Everyone, welcome to our Books to Door Live. I'm Jasleen and we are going to invite our special guest this morning. We've got Gemma, so over to you in a moment, Gemma. Let's just get you in. Thank you all for joining us. Oops, just 1 second. We'll be with you in a moment. Oops. Just give us 1 moment, sorry. Can't find Gemma. We'll be with you in a minute. Sorry, we'll be with you in 1 minute. Just a little technical glitch, just give us a second. Gemma, I don't know if you're on already. Don't know why it's coming up with that. We'll just check that Gemma has joined our live. Sorry about that. We're just looking for Gemma. So give us a moment. So let's invite Gemma now. Okay, I've turned the camera off for a sec.
Come on.
Yeah, I can't find her. Look. Look, it's saying no user available.
Are we following her?
Yeah.
I should be.
Hi everyone, we're back. Sorry about that. And we're here live with Gemma. So morning Gemma, thank you to everybody who's joined us so far. We'll do a quick introduction. I'm Jasleen from Books to Door and this is Gemma Barder. She is a children's author and has books published with Sweet Cherry Publishing. Sweet Cherry Publishing are also in the conversation and tagged in, so be sure to check them out at Sweet Cherry Publishing. So over to you, Gemma.
Hello, sorry I'm a bit late. I don't know quite what happened. Yes, so as Justine might have said, sorry I joined a bit late. I was given the absolutely commission of writing these beautiful books, which are adaptations of Jane Austen for children. I think it's pitched around 8+, but it obviously depends on kind of the child, I suppose. Could go a little bit younger. And I am a massive Jane Austen fan. So I've read all the books before, watched all the adaptations, and at the time I had an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. So it was almost like the stars had aligned for me to get this commission, which was it was really, really good. So yeah, it was 2 years ago now, but yeah, it was brilliant. It was really good fun.
Great, thank you. But these are incredibly popular books. They're a great way to get kids involved in kind of British literature. So, but before we get started into that, we thought we'd just do a quick fire round so the audience can get to know you, Gemma. So I'm going to put you on the spot with some questions. Hope that's okay. So I'll get started. And by all means, if anybody wants to join in the comments, feel free to join in and answer some of the questions as well. So first of all, what are you reading right now?
I am reading a Single Thread by Tracy Chevalier, and it's actually my book. So I'm a member of we choose a book every month to read, and sometimes I don't enjoy the book.
Great, okay. So that was A Single Thread that Gemma's reading at the moment. And what's the first book you ever wrote then?
Oh gosh, so I started, and I still do, write things, annuals, which obviously we all used to get annuals at Christmas time, and they're still going. So I used to write sort of a lot of activity books, and then the first sort of chapter book that I wrote was an adaptation of a TV program called Miraculous Ladybug. If you've ever heard of that, I don't know.
I'm sure some of our audience will have. Yeah,
got children of a certain age, and you know, but yeah, it was like a you know, like how you see the sort of TV to novel. It was one of those.
Well, actually, that leads me on really nicely to the next question. Is it the book or the movie that comes first, or the TV show, perhaps, in your opinion?
What, in terms of?
So do you read the book first, or do you watch the...
First, yeah, always. If it's an adaptation of a book, always read how the author who came up with the story intended it to be. Yeah.
Great. We can see some comments coming in. So the show that you just mentioned, your first book that you did the adaptation for, some people are saying they love that. So that's really great and a nice bit of going back in time. Right, I've got a couple more questions. So is there a book out there that you didn't write but you wish you did?
Oh my gosh.
Is there a list?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I would love to be a genius like Jane Austen and be able to come up with something like that. There's a book out there at the moment called Where the Crawdads Sing. That's a really beautiful book, and I always marvel at like authors who can come up with these beautiful stories and write them so beautifully. So I was quite glad that I had Jane Austen's initial sort of genius to be able to work from for my book.
Great. Okay, and then one more before we move on to talking about the Jane Austen collection. If you could have one author at a dinner party, who would it be?
Oh, can it be any alive or dead or? Oh gosh, I mean, it sounds too obvious to say Jane Austen. Obviously, she would be there somewhere. But also the Brontes, they always seem like they'd be quite good. Mary Shelley, just all the sort of the women who were doing it back when women weren't supposed to be doing it. I think they would be a good laugh, I think.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you, Gemma, and there's loads of you joining in with us now, so that's great. It's great to have you here. Please stay with us for the whole session. We're going to be talking to Gemma lots. There's going to be an extract from the book, and then at the end, don't forget, we're going to be revealing a unique discount for 15% off all Sweet Cherry books on the Books to Door website. And then also we've got 5 sets of the incredible Jane Austen collection to give away, which Gemma's going to be talking about in a moment. So I'll probably hand over to you a little bit, Gemma, as well. I know you've told us a bit about yourself, but do you want to start by telling us what really inspired you to write children's books, and then particularly this Jane Austen one?
Yeah, so I write like ever since I can remember. I mean, I used to, I remember when I was little, I used to have like a collection of troll dolls, and I used to make books for notes. So I've been writing for a really long time. And then I trained as a journalist, and my very first job was actually on Barbie magazine. So I was a very serious journalist. And that got me into sort of children's media and children's publishing. And then I moved on and worked for a company that did sort of activity books and magazines for other companies. It was like an agency that did it all. And that gave me like a really good sort of training in writing for children. Because I do think it's quite a specific skill, and I've got quite a lot of friends who are either designers or writers for children. And yeah, it's much harder than people think it is, because you obviously have to work to a level they can understand and that they'll be interested in.
And like, I'm a mum as well, so I mean, my little one's only 3, and you said your children, I think they're now, is it 10 and
6 now? Yeah.
And you sort of you sort of know what they're going to be geared towards and what their interests are, and you're right, it is a very different style of writing, but you want them to have variation as well, not just sort of have one kind of style that they're interested in or fixed to. So I think that's really great, where you can actually bring something like British literature and be able to adapt it for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had anecdotal evidence of people who have read them and how their children have read them, and it's sparked sort of conversations about how women were kind of treated at the time and what their options were. So it's a really sort of reading about this sort of the social side of life back in sort of the Regency period, and choosing these books to read is a really good sort of springboard to show how life was back then.
Yeah, and it can be like a fun history lesson, and that, I guess, with your kids then, or others that you know that have read it, would you say then it kind of sparks conversation and questions from children as well about sort of history that you can then talk about and explain?
Yeah, definitely. Because my older, she was reading them and she was kind of like, well, but why are they so getting married? Why is like the mum in Pride and Prejudice especially is so obsessed with her getting her girls married? And it's like, you know, there's more to life. But back then that was seen as kind of the only option for a woman to be able to sort of survive later on in life without her parents, was to find something to keep her going, because they couldn't work and they couldn't find their own money and they couldn't find their own fortune. It was a good way to sort of chat to her about, you know, how far we've come, really.
Yeah, definitely. And so is Pride and Prejudice one of your favourites, or have you got a favourite from the collection?
I am.
Yeah, I did notice that, your t-shirt. That's brilliant.
But it changes, really. It really does change, because obviously when I was writing the books, I had to reread them all and go over them and watch some of the adaptations again. And it really does change. I mean, although she is the same author, and it does follow the same sort of themes of falling in love and family, and they are all very different, and they all have very different sort of atmosphere. So yeah, some days I love Abbey and some days I love Pride and Prejudice. Depends.
So this is the complete collection that we've got here, and as well as obviously the adaptations, these have been illustrated beautifully. So they're quite appealing, quite eye-catching to sort of the 7 to 8 and 9 age reader. Can you tell us a little bit about how the stories have been brought to life? Because there's illustrations throughout as well, so it helps to kind of break up the chapter text and the transition from what children were reading before into longer text stories.
I think the illustrations really make it even more accessible. Obviously, completely changed the language, because they were books that were written 200 years ago, and even I sometimes sort of struggle with the original language. So obviously the text we've completely changed to be accessible for a younger reader. Illustrations, I think, to sort of break it up and help to understand the sort of tone of what's happening, and the expressions I think are really great in the book. So there's this one at the moment, the extract I wanted to read in a bit.
Yes. Why don't we do that now while you've got it open? Yeah, that would be great.
So this is from Pride and Prejudice. Basically, I know a lot of people already know the story, but the background for this scene is that Lizzie, second eldest daughter in the family, has been asked to be married to a not very well. He's fine, but he's a bit of a bumbling fool, bless him, Mr. Collins, and she really doesn't want to marry him. Her mother really wants her to marry because he eventually inherit their house, and that means that it gives family security. So they have to basically go to Lizzie's dad to try and sort it out. Whatever is the matter? Asked Mr. Bennet, looking up from his book. Mr. Collins has asked Lizzie to marry him, and she has refused, cried Mrs. Bennet. Mr. Bennet slowly put down his book. And what am I to do about it? You must make her marry him, said Mr. Bennet, or I shall never see her again. Mr. Bennet nodded. I see, he said, and looked at his daughter. Then you have an unhappy choice ahead of you, Lizzie. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I will never see you again if you do. Mrs. Bennet wailed as Lizzie's heart jumped. She could not have imagined a worse face than marrying Mr. Collins, and her father had just saved her from it. So it's a really nice kind of moment in the book, and I was reading that in the original story and just being like, yes, thank goodness, marry this bumbling fool. And yeah, it's a really sweet moment.
It is, and it's and I think what you said something earlier on as well about each of the stories does have quite a different plot and a storyline. So there's lots of different areas that children can explore.
Yeah.
With this collection, though, you don't need to read them in any particular order, do you? You can just pick one. So if we all know Jane Austen, but maybe some of the ones like Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, or Emma might stick out to us first as parents or as readers. Where should we start with this collection?
Oh goodness, maybe if you are buying son or your daughter to read and you don't know them, I would go for the one that you don't know the most because you're reading the story. So I wrote last year. Wrote a series of Russian classics for children, and one of my friends has actually bought it for her dad because she said it's the only way he was ever going to read War and Peace.
Wow.
It's a case of if you don't know a story, it's actually quite a nice way of getting the main plot and the storyline along, sort of reading along with your child.
That's really nice. And we will, if anybody's got any questions, there's lots of you joined now. We've still got obviously plenty of time in the live. So if you've got any questions for Gemma, please feel free to pop them in the comments and we'll capture them and we'll be able to come to those in the end. But Gemma, sometimes, like I said, I'm a mum and my little boy, he is only 3, but we've been reading since he was born, really. He's, been to the library and everything like that since little. But sometimes we can get children that are reluctant to read. Do you have any sort of tips or advice, like, you share something, I'll share something, that we can maybe help our fans with if they have got reluctant readers, and why this, it doesn't necessarily have to be this collection, but how we can kind of introduce new books into children?
Well, I'm definitely not an expert, so I can go on kind of anecdotal evidence of being, and obviously being a writer. And I would just say, whatever they are interested in, they can read anything. It can be the back of a cereal packet, and if they're interested in it, then let it. I remember when I was young, I was given it was a Charles Dickens, I think I've actually still got it, it's in my daughter's room, a Charles Dickens children's version of Oliver, and I raced through that and I loved it, and it made me want to older pick up the original version, the classic version. And I think that's what this set and what the Russian classics will do, is to sort of introduce a new young generation to classic literature that may seem quite daunting, but I think if you already have that storyline in your head, it's more accessible. But in terms of sort of getting children to read, literally just choose something that they're interested in. You mentioned just then, and we've chatted before about how much we miss the library. And even though obviously we've got quite a lot of books in the house because of my job, but we love going to the library, and they love just like looking along the shelves and picking up whatever they want. And even if it's like a big book on sharks or tractors or aeroplanes or whatever it is, then no book is a bad book. No book is a book. It's just, getting into reading is just important life skills.
Yeah. And it's really good, like when you know, these books as well can really supplement what children are learning at school, and it's nice, you know, if they can write like sort of mini book reviews around it and that sort of thing. But for me, I think my thing is just being able to still, because my little one is still little, I guess, it's just nice to be able to still cuddle up and sit and read. And there's a really good saying actually at his nursery, they have it on the wall, and it says there's no app to replace your lap, and it's true, isn't it? And it's that sort of bonding time, and for ages now he'll go and pick and be like, I want to read this one today, or, you know, mummy, let's read this one today, and it's nice to have that. But I like to try and,
well, I'm 10 now, and it's really nice to start reading the same book. So we've both read all the Harry Potters, and so it's really nice to kind of start talking to her about books that she's read and I've read, and she reads sort of young adult, will pass to me. And then with the Jane collection, there may be mums and dads who have read the originals and then want to pass on the story, and they can talk about the storyline together. So I think it's really nice to get in when you're young, that love of reading, which can just carry no matter what age they are.
yeah. And does your older one pass on books to your younger one then as well? Does that happen?
Well, it's almost like with clothes. It's like when one grows out, it into the other. So yeah, my youngest is only 6, so she's only just sort of starting on the very, very basic chapter books at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so we're starting to get a few questions in. There was one just now that said, what made you fall in love with writing? So it's over to you, Gemma.
Gosh, I don't know. It's always been the thing that gives me the most joy and the most pleasure, and even now, like if I'm feeling stressed, I have a few moments on my computer, you know, writing an activity book or a novel, I instantly, like, it's almost like a switch in my brain. I instantly feel calmer and more able to sort of deal with things. Yeah, I just love it. I love work. I love the sort of motion of typing. That sounds very sad, doesn't it? But yeah, but I've just always loved it. I've always loved making up stories and sort of going off into a dream world. So yeah.
And is there a place then that you need to sit to be in the zone to do your writing?
Oh, we've actually just moved house. So we moved house about 3.5 weeks ago.
Are you feeling a bit out of sorts then?
Odd. 2 places in the house working at home at the moment, and we kind of haven't found that rhythm yet of, right, well, this is where I sit and write, that's your job. So we're still figuring that out a little bit, actually.
We had another question just come up as well, so I'll start reading them as they come through now. But do you have a character in any of the books from Jane Austen that you relate to, or that you particularly, you know, a favourite character maybe, and why, if so?
I think all the heroines are quite in their own way. So I mean, the classic one everybody mentions is Lizzie, because she is not a typical woman of that kind, quite outspoken, and she turns down marriage proposals. Women would snap them up, I think, in the Regency period. But I quite like Anne from Persuasion as well. I used to not like Persuasion, but the older I've got, the more I sort of can relate to her decisions and can understand where she's coming from. And I think they're my 2, Lizzie and Anne.
Great. Okay, so I'll just sort of do a quick, we've probably got a couple more questions, but I'll just do a quick recap. So in the collection that you've got here, just because I don't think we've actually covered all of the titles that you get. So the first one is Emma, and then following that we've got Sense and Sensibility. They're all about the same sort of length in terms of the size of the book and things like that. We've got another question here actually, which you might want to answer now. So which cover or character illustration do you like the most?
Well, while you're going through them, I'll have a look and I'll decide.
So we've got Love and Friendship as well, Pride and Prejudice, one of everybody's favourites. We've got Persuasion, which Gemma just mentioned now, Mansfield Park and Northanger Abbey. But what's also in this collection from Sweet Cherry Publishing, as well as the books, and it just really fits in nicely with what Gemma was saying about writing, is that you've got a journal here So if people want to get started and start writing as they're reading, it could be just writing for a couple of minutes a day, writing about what happened in their day, or even just once a week. There's no kind of pressure, but that's just really nice and might inspire people might inspire children once they've got this collection to start doing some of their own writing. And that all comes nicely in this box set. And I think the other thing we forgot to mention is that as well as the lovely illustrations, which Gemma, you'll pick your favourite of in a moment, each book has actually got a QR code here, and you can hear the story if you want to as you read along. So that's really nice to encourage maybe independent reading with your child. And there's more information there about Sweet Cherry Publishing as well, where you can sort of get downloads and things. So that's really, really nice, and that's in every single book. So that can help with reluctant readers as well, I think.
We skipped them actually, and they're really nice. So the way they're read is the music and everything. It's quite dreamy, quite a nice thing to do before bed. Like if your child's tired and they're thinking, "Oh, I don't want to read," it's still sort of getting the words, but
well, it's kind of like audiobooks as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we grew up with. I've still bought my son some, and I bought him a CD player because that's what we know as well. So it's nice to have that side of it. So Gemma, have you got a favourite?
Yes, I went for one purely because I've got two girls. I've also got a sister, and I love the way they're looking at each other, and yeah, you can see their sort of personalities even through very sort of quite simple illustration. You can see that Marianne are in a little bit more sort of vivacious, but yeah, that's my favourite, I think.
Great, thank you. And so, Gemma, I've got one sort of burning question, and this is from me actually. What are you writing next?
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know if we talked about this. I know what I'm writing right now. Oh, this one. Okay. Well, yeah. I won't say what we're writing right now, but yeah, the ones that I wrote last year, they're the. I haven't seen that yet. That's quite exciting.
I think that you have got the green light to say what you're writing, what you are writing as well.
Well, yeah. So I'll start with those though. But
yeah.
Last year we decided to do the Russian classics. That's a book set, I think, and there were quite a few titles that I hadn't read, so it was really interesting to get to know those stories. Yeah, as I've said before, War and Peace, my friend is getting for her dad because he wants to read it a lot. And then there's Anna Karenina, there's Of Our Time, and there's lots and lots and lots there on the website. But yeah, what I'm writing at the moment is some American adaptations of classics. So Huckleberry Finn and The Age of Innocence and Call of the Wild, which
they'll be expected around this kind of autumn time. So that's in motion at the moment, isn't it? I think
I'm writing at the moment, which I think are going to come out next year. But yeah, the Russians are coming out throughout this year, I think.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. We've had lots of questions and loads of interaction from people, so thank you. Gemma, you've been absolutely brilliant. There's just a couple of things, I guess. I don't think there's any sort of further questions, but we obviously have promised every attendee an exclusive discount for Sweet Cherry Publishing books available on the Books to Door website. So the code that you need is SCP15, and you can use that at the checkout. So that's SCP15, and that's at Books to Door. So you can get 15% off any Sweet Cherry books, but it's only for 24 hours. So now's the time to get online and get some fantastic Sweet Cherry books. So, and you'll see other books in there from Gemma too. We have also got 5 copies of the Jane Austen collection to give away. So we're back today again at 4 o'clock with Gemma, so for the same kind of session, but we'll hopefully have maybe some of you come back or some new audiences as well, and there'll be 5 copies to give away, and we'll be contacting those winners. So thank you again, Gemma, for being part of our live. A huge thank you to Sweet Cherry Publishing for producing these fantastic books, and you can see plenty more behind me. I think that's it. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, Jasleen. That was really good.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Gemma. See you later. Bye.